Hello everyone, I'm Lorenzo and today I'll be talking about the mobile gaming market and how it's grown to affect the gaming industry. While video games have been around in some way or another for a while now, mobile gaming, arguably one of the most popular platforms to game on, was not always the massive industry that it is today. How did this happen? How did we get to the point to where we are today? Before cell phones became more widely popular, and let's be honest, had less in common with a brick, the first evolution of mobile gaming was Nintendo's Game Boy. Like this one right here. Released in 1989, the Game Boy allowed its user to play games on the go because of its built-in buttons, and not that impressive nowadays. All green screen. Games released for the Game Boy were a mix of home console style games, like games from the NES, which is Nintendo's home console of the time, and more mobile oriented games like Tetris. The success of the Game Boy led there to be updated versions released as well as many competitors to the Game Boy. These portable game consoles paved the way for mobile gaming. The next step for mobile gaming would be the increase in popularity of cell phones. As mentioned earlier, in the beginning, cell phones were big, bulky, not to mention expensive. But by the late 90s and early 2000s, cell phones were smaller and cheaper than their predecessors. Not only that, but cell phones were beginning to have color screens and more processing power. These advancements allowed a small mobile gaming industry to develop. Generally, these earlier mobile games were not that complicated due to the limited hardware of the time. They consisted of mostly simple puzzle games like Bejeweled and Tetris. Some game development companies even attempted to convert some of their bigger console and PC titles into mobile versions by decreasing graphics, removing features, and in some cases completely changing the base game. An example of this is Far Cry 2, an open-world shooter game that had a very simplified mobile version released. While the industry is farther along than before, one more change would bring on the start of the mobile gaming industry that we recognize today. The release of the iPhone. The release of the iPhone brought along the beginning of modern smartphones. A full-length touchscreen, gyro sensors, and later on HD cameras would be the characteristics of iPhones and other smart devices to come. Not only that, but these new devices had more powerful processors and the ability to connect to the internet. What did this mean for the industry? At some point, smartphones were getting to the point where they can run more advanced console-level games. This allowed titles to be released to the platform like early 3D GTA games, LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, Terraria, and Minecraft. But console games were not the best experience on smartphones. Touch controls replaced physical joysticks and buttons, removing the tactile experience one would get from using a controller. Not only that, but these full-length games did not properly suit the playstyle best for mobile games. The best mobile games have simple, repetitive game mechanics that allow the player to jump in at any time and play for as long or for as little as they wanted. Games that follow these guidelines include hits like Angry Birds, Cut the Rope, Minion Run, and Doodle Jump. Soon, large game development companies caught on to this, and they realized that to be more successful in the mobile gaming market, they had to change their strategy. These game companies then began using their established characters from their console games and began creating mobile games with similar mechanics to the games mentioned before. Games like Super Mario Run, Pokemon Go, and Sonic Dash Endless Runner game, kind of a mouthful there, utilize the strategy of creating smaller games with repetitive game mechanics to properly capitalize on the mobile market. And that basically brings us to where we are today. Does mobile gaming affect the gaming industry though? Absolutely. For big game development companies like EA, Sega, and even Nintendo, to shift some of their focus to mobile gaming development means that it is too big of an industry for them to ignore. To wrap it up, mobile gaming is a huge and influential industry that has massively impacted the gaming market and has caused some big gaming companies to adapt to fulfill the demands of mobile gamers. Thank you so much for watching.